What's up, you guys? Adam here with Anabolic Climbing, and now that we started the conversation of what drugs would look like in the sport at the highest level, I think it's only fair that we talk about drug testing at rock climbing's highest level and critique it, be honest with ourselves about the current state of drug testing, and from there we're going to talk about what that means to the athletes, what that means to the sport as a whole. Let's ask ourselves a few questions and start a bit of a conversation. But if you guys like these kinds of deep dives into the fairness of play and into the potential drug scene within professional rock climbing, please don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell. Helps the channel out tremendously. Please leave a comment. This particular video is very much a discussion for the community at whole. So without further ado, let's hop into it. So we're going to go over the current state of testing, some notable failures, the holes in testing, consider what it looks like from the athlete's perspective. I want to start the conversation of, do we value this sport, or at least comp climbing, as a drug-free sport? And I want to talk about the ethics of doping. Like, obviously, if you take a look at the latest video, people seem really puritanical about having the sport be drug-free. But I want to push back against that a little bit. I know it's rich coming from me. So let's start in the beginning, right? Number one, there's currently zero visibility into testing or the testing frequency. We have seen data of tests in 2022, but not after. Also, the testing pool is extraordinarily limited. Just extrapolating off of what we've seen from the drug tests in 2022, and I'm going to get into that in a second. Urine tests are not sufficient to establish the biological passport, which is really what is necessary to track aberrations and blood markers that you would associate with drug use. So if you actually are familiar with any of my content, I'm not surprised if you're not. It's been a really great week for the channel. I've actually tracked my blood work for the last 5 or 6 years now. And you can see in depth a baseline of, I want to say, over 80 of my blood markers, ranging from my testosterone, my estradiol, my lipids, my red blood cell count. And you could very easily see the fluctuations and changes over time. It's very apparent when I got on the juice, even when I kept my doses to sub-supraphysiological levels, you can still see the aberrations. And if you're only going off of urine tests, you can't create this kind of comprehensive data. This is something that you'd see in the Olympics. This is what you see in mixed martial arts. And without this, you're never going to be able to get this kind of comprehensive overview of the athletes to figure out when it's more or less likely that they've cheated, and you can refer back to it in the case of positive tests. Number 3, most of the field is largely untested. Because drug testing, particularly blood testing, is so expensive, and you still need someone at the lab to review it. You need A sample, B sample. Most folks that compete in rock climbing will probably never get tested. Unless you are winning competitions or making the podium, if you're 4th, 5th, or 6th, you may go potentially even to the professional circuit having never had a drug test. And I've spoken with folks on various ends of the U.S. national team that have legitimately been flown all across the world to compete that have never taken a drug test in their careers. Furthermore, laying on that, there is no money to test frequently. So it's one thing to say, hey, we're just going to test winners, but realistically, just in the conversations that we've had right now is between me and you guys in the community, we know that there are certain compounds that make more sense for off-season and certain compounds that make more sense for competition day. And if you're not going through and testing these folks in the off-season, there are so many compounds that clear very quickly that you could pull out 2 to 4 weeks prior to your competition. That would give you a huge advantage and allow you to make huge leaps in the off season, that now that the comp season is back, you would have a huge leg up over your competitors. And lastly, I kind of touched on this in point number 2, but if you're going to do urine tests over blood tests, what are we doing here? I could be juiced to the gills and still beat a urine test. At some point or another, it's a video that I'm willing to do where I'm just going to get on literally all the sauce. You guys could see me do it, or see potentially like someone that wants to volunteer do it, and we'll go through and take a urine test and smash it because it's not that hard to do. So I actually want to bring receipts to this. I'm not just going to talk out of school. So let's actually go to the IFSC site. And right here, we have the registered testing pool for 2024. We do not have this for 2025. And you'll notice that the testing pool is super, super slim. We have maybe 15 or 20 people. And this is ultimately, these are folks that are going to be tested out of competition. These are folks that are going to be tested on the day. But, you know, as far as I could tell, I think there's a lot of speed climbers that, yeah, so Sam Watson is on here, but the majority of the rest of the American team is not. You could easily have, yeah, Colin Duffy's here. I say that to say that if you're potentially a third or fourth or fifth best on the team and you're not part of the testing pool, it's not unreasonable to assume that you could take that time in the off season, get juiced to the gills, come in on comp day having let stuff clear your system, and start smoking your competitors. And as more money gets into the sport, that is likely going to be more and more likely. And this is the pool in 2024. We don't know what it is for 2025. And I also, in 2022, we would have data like this, where you would see the total number of urine samples, total number of blood samples, competitors and what they were tested. But, you know, go back to what I was saying, right? If urine tests are a meme and you're only doing 8 samples, 20 competitors, 8 blood samples, that's not enough to like realistically get good metrics on any of these folks. If people were doing something shady and they were capable of beating urine tests, this would be Babytown frolics. Like, there are so many holes in this. And again, the winners of, and the folks that are getting paid for this, it's not the climbers. It's the World Anti-Doping Agency. It's their labs that are ultimately making this money off of the IFSC. This doesn't, you know, these folks getting drug tested does not improve the athlete's experience. It doesn't improve our viewing experience. This is just additional hurdles that they need to go through that don't really prevent folks from doping. And, you know, I'm going to talk a little bit right now about how it's potentially to the athlete's detriment. But first off, let's talk about the folks that were not capable of cheating well. And first off, back in, I want to say the 90s, it was Chris Sharma. He obviously, legend of the sport. He was one of the early sport climbing competitors. He got popped for for jazz cabbage or the devil's lettuce. And instead of getting off the herbs and spices, he decided to get and set some of the hardest solos or some of the hardest routes at the time. I want to say up to 515 BC, and sent the hardest deep water solos in the world at the time, which is based and fucking epic. By the way, it's cool that Chris wants to get back into comp climbing now, but you know it's still not legal in the IFSC? Weed. Number 2, on the similar topic, Edu Martin, who after a lot of stress and a lot of training decided doing a boatload of cocaine was his solution to getting bored with the rigors of climbing training. And you know what, man? I don't think coke is a PED. I think that dude was probably trying to blow off some steam and have some fun. And because of that, he is mentioned as a drug failure in rock climbing and ends up on a list like this. But getting more to the point, let's talk about really the meat of the matter here. Because, like, I don't care about cocaine. You don't care about cocaine. None of us care about weed. What we're really talking about is guys like Pavel Batushev, who was a Russian ice climber who basically won comps in his early 20s, went on a 5 or 6 year drought, not even podiuming. He had a hard time cracking the top 5. And the dude slams some meldronium and wins his first comp in about 6 years. And after that, immediately pisses hot and gets disqualified and is still currently banned from ice climbing. And that's a little bit more on the nose of what we're talking about. My guess is the meldronium popped in a urine test. I don't know if it was blood. I don't know how the ice climbing scene is judged. And also, this was a very common compound that was being used at the time. Maria Sharapova, a very famous tennis player, was popped with this. This was very common coming out of the Russian scene. Meldronium is a Russian compound. But that was a high visibility case of a climber getting popped for a banned substance. And obviously, you guessed it, it was obviously Reza Kolasinac was going to be put on this list. What really irritates the ever-living fuck out of me about Reza isn't just that he tested positive, like, whatever. It's not even that he used Winstrol, which is a compound that I don't think pairs super well for sport climbing. It's the fact that this fucking asshole basically claims that he, like, never took steroids to his Instagram followers and is a fake natty. Like, that just gets under my skin, man. Like, if you're gonna dope, just own it, man. Just say, yeah, this is who I am, this is what I do. In some of his early Instagram posts, this guy is, like, showing pictures of Derek Lunsford, who's the current Mr. Olympia, and he's like, I'm like Derek Lunsford without the steroids. And I'm like, shut the fuck up, dude. No. Number one, you guys are both saucy. And number two, you do not look like Derek Lunsford. Sure, you have more bicep definition than Derek Lunsford because he has bad biceps, but that's not here or there. But yeah, fake natties will always get maximum ire out of me. So let's go into a little bit more detail about this, right? We had, in 2022, we had the total number of folks in the testing pool and the total number of tests. But if we're going to continue to do a 10% blood test ratio, what are we even doing here? And I've spoken to, even this week, para climbers, folks on the U.S. speed climbing team that have never been tested. And you could potentially go your entire pro climbing career having never been tested. And as far as the actual drug testing results, people might have tested positive and we don't know because the IFSC or WADA has never disclosed this. It's not unreasonable to think that folks have tested positive and nothing was shared. Beyond that, I kind of want to go back to Reza for a second because this guy was popped for Winstrol, but the real question is that all he was taking? And my inference is probably no. I feel like using a Winstrol-only cycle is a novice move at best, which, like, maybe our drug scene isn't super established or super evolved. But if you look at him now, the guy is still juiced to the gills, and you would never run Winstrol year-round as a climber. Your tendons would feel like glass, which, again, I would suspect why he placed so poorly. So if we can assume that he was taking testosterone, if we could assume that there were maybe even some other compounds in there that maybe cleared faster and he didn't have metabolites in his system, then it's even more an implication of blame toward the ineffectiveness of these urine-only tests. And why I think this guy got tested despite not finishing in, like, the top 50 of the comp. I mean, fucking look at this dude. I'm sure they were just walking around and be like, all right, we should probably test this guy. So what does testing actually mean for athletes? And before you just go ahead and say, not everybody wants the dope, don't push this on them, blah, 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 hear this out. This is pretty fair criticism. I want to put this forth as, like, what this looks like from an athlete perspective if you are being tested day in and day out, right? And number one is a lack of privacy and a lack of dignity. Folks can show up to your gym, show up to your house, show up to your mom's house, show up to you on vacation, and just say, hey, I need you to come with me to the bathroom and take a piss. And, you know, if we were having, like, a combat sport or something where you could potentially injure somebody or inflict bodily harm, I could see a lot of justification for being this serious around drug enforcement. But, like, these people are climbing rocks. No one outside of the athlete is really in danger, and their reward for being incredible at this skill is massive invasions of privacy. Number two is integrity over joy. And I use integrity in air quotes because to just prove to us that they're not doing drugs, imagine if you pee prior to your bouldering final or your speed climbing final. And maybe you set a world record, or maybe you get an amazing flash and your teammates are overjoyed and you're about the podium and you want to celebrate with your friends and your family. And you can't be with them because you have to take a drug test and you have to piss and it might take you an hour or two to pee again. And by then the moment's ruined and, you know, this peak experience for you in life has been completely fucked over because you have to prove to WADA that you didn't take drugs. Like, that sucks. That's an awful way to treat our athletes and our heroes. And by the way, this is really commonplace in Olympics, in weightlifting. You know, I can appreciate the desire to have a drug-free sport, but to suck the joy out of the people that literally put their heart and soul into this, that's awful. I don't appreciate that in the slightest. And I kind of want to talk again to that point about anti-doping over health, right? To be so maliciously drug-free, and I use that term malicious when it comes to WADA, because let's say hypothetically an athlete gets injured. There are various different healing protocols with compounds that are completely legal in their countries. For example, growth hormone, perfectly legal, prescribable by a doctor, could help you get over a tendon injury or a joint injury. You're not allowed to take that. Other compounds like DHEA that could be helpful toward the endocrine system, can't take that either. Even if you're not feeling super well, THC still banned by WADA. You can't even celebrate or relax or unwind the way that you want to. Why is it, as audience members, we should decide whether or not athletes get to smoke weed? It's crazy, right? And that sort of translates into the negative outcomes, right? Even if you don't want to take it to my extreme, where you think TRT is too much or hormones are too much. Okay, that's fine. DHEA, which is an over-the-counter supplement you could find at your local CVS, Walgreens, Walmart for $5. That's amazing at promoting endocrine health that I would run as a natty, especially when I got to lower body fats, to maintain endocrine function, which is something we know happens to athletes at low body weights. We know that when body fat gets really low, endocrine systems crash. We know this. And that's what leads to muscle loss. That could also lead to irritability. It's bad for your mental health to have a disrupted endocrine system. We won't allow this outcome because WADA says so. Think about what that means to athletes that are already enduring rigorous training, that are having a hard time recovering, that are also on the road. Yeah, it's the dream, but how much more resilient would they be if you allowed them to use tools that literally everyone else in the population has access to, just so that we could say that we're drug-free? It's preposterous. And, I just sort of want to circle back on this. Do you actually give a fuck about whether or not climbers are on gear, right? Like, who are we hurting? It's not like this is MMA or boxing or kickboxing, where these folks are getting juiced to the gills and beating the crap out of each other and inflicting damage. Like, this is a cohort of people that actively electrocute their hands so that they sweat less, that are looking at every specific edge to try to, improve their climbing. If I can electrocute my hands to remove the sweat glands from my hands, why is taking hormones any different? What is wrong with them being able to take compounds to enhance their resilience? Even if you want to cut short of your testosterone or something like that, would an HCG be acceptable? Would you allow them to upregulate their hormones endogenously? Would you feel more comfortable about letting them take things to recover from injury faster? Again, you don't even let these guys smoke weed for the sake of being pure. It's pretty draconian if we're being completely transparent about it. And as you guys are muddling this over, I want to sort of have the conversation of what I would consider good ethics for doping in climbing to be. Now, some of this is for folks that are competitors. Some of this is for us as a community. Again, this is my first draft of this. If you have other things that you think should be included, please throw that in the comments below. But, if you're doping and it's for personal use and you're not a competitor and you're being responsible, I don't think anyone should give a fuck what you do. That's between you, your God, and your wife. No one cares. Or husband, partner, dog, whatever. Number 2, this is going to be a take that you might not believe, but I believe in talking people out of peptides, not into them. I cannot tell you how many times I've spoken to climbers that are chronically injured, because that's what we do here, that they're like, hey, can BPC 157 and TB 500 help this or that? And a lot of times the answer is no. I've talked about before using it on my bicep tendon, and it's pulled off the bone. It's partially torn, so my bicep works fine, but I can't just slam peptides in my bicep and shoulder and have it magically reattached. That's only going to happen from surgery. And then sure, if I took that after the surgery, that'd be great. The other day I was talking to someone that tore some ligaments in his foot. The healing peptides aren't going to magically fix that. And, I've probably talked about a dozen climbers out of these compounds, not into them. And, being honest with each other and as a community about these compounds, I think is important. Number 3 rather. Uh, Test or doping on your own is fine, but if you dope in places where folks are supposed to be natural, that is clown behavior, and I will rip on you until the end of time. Unless we as a sport decide that doping is fine and everyone can do it, in the tested events, go fuck yourself if you were cheating. I stand on business on that. And then to that next point, though, your desire for a clean sport shouldn't come at the expense of the athlete's health. I don't think this is a hot take. These folks have to live and breathe and work long after they require from like the pro scene. If a climber, God forbid, has a fucked up shoulder injury, it's awful that WADA forces them to not use all of the proper medicine to allow them to heal properly. I think these folks should have every opportunity to heal so that they don't live the rest of their lives in chronic pain for getting this random rule imposed on them because they climb rocks for our entertainment. As far as doping in outdoor climbs, I think disclosure isn't super necessary unless you're doing cutting edge stuff. If you're putting up the first V18, V19, I think it's worth disclosing whether or not you were on the sauce. But if you're doing things that are within the realm of, I'm just ballparking numbers right now, V14 and lower, if you don't want to mention it, fine. But like, I'm all about transparency, but I don't think it's paramount. Next up, I talk openly about compounds with adults, not children. I think it's fine that us as adults have these adult conversations, but if you are under the age of 18, really under the age of 25, stay the fuck away from drugs, man. There's no reason to be pushing the pharmacology that young. I stand by that. If that's really what you want to do with your life, get into bodybuilding, and I'm not the channel for you. Next up, if you are on the sauce and you are selling supplements that you say you made those great gains because of the supplements, not the sauce, go fuck yourself. You're a piece of shit. And I stand by that 10 times out of 10. I hate when people sell bunk supplements. It's so fucked up. It's the worst. It's a grift and it's a stealing money and you're a trash human being. There's plenty of other better ways that are more ethical to get that bag. And lastly, either be transparent about your dosing or don't fucking mention it. I don't like it when people over or under exaggerate their doses. It leads to bad precedents. It leads to folks being irresponsible and less safe. Either say what you're doing or don't say anything at all. That's kind of my take on it. Anyway, a lot to go over the course of this video, a lot of conversation topics. I would really love to start the conversation with the community around your perspectives in doping. I was hoping that more of this would come out in the latest video, but I would love for us to have a conversation. By the way, if you think everything I'm saying is anathema to climbing, let me know. If you think that there are one or 2 points that are worth like considering, let me know. If you think that there are things along good ethics for doping and climbing, let me know. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. In general, thank you for a lot of the support. I've had a lot of folks reach out to me this week. It's been a crazy one. And yeah, it's been really cool for the channel. It means a lot. I'm getting my blood work done next week. Going to be getting off of just like your usual TRT and bringing back in more anabolics. We'll talk more about that later. But yeah, if you guys like what I do, don't forget to like, subscribe. Frequent blood work is good style if you are enhanced. And yeah, I'm Adam with Anabolic Climbing, wishing you good luck and happy sending. I'll see you guys in the next one.